This is a Film Stories original podcast.
We made this.
Welcome to the Starlight Ballroom. Hey!
Hello and welcome to Shipwrecked and Comatose. This is the fourth of our weekly, daily, I've already botched it, 4 or 5 or 7 or lots of episodes in a row that are in a week. Oh dear. This is only the 4th out of 5 and I'm Mark, by the way. Hello and welcome to Shipwrecked and Comatose. With me at this time is Carl Bryan. Hello, Carl.
Hello, Mark. How are you doing?
I'm tired.
Yeah.
And also with me at this time is Colin. Hello, Colin.
Hello.
I realised I said Carl's surname and not yours. With me at this time is Colin Jackson Brown.
Hello.
Fucking hell. This is going to be a difficult episode. This is our 4th of 5 daily episodes in a week where we are looking at the Smegazines Volume 2. So, funnily enough, we're looking at issue 4. I didn't write down when it was released.
July 93, so it would have been June it was in the shops.
Thanks, Colin. And the cover features artwork. Yes, I was very pleased that this featured artwork. It's been a long time. In fact, it's the first time in the Volume 2 that we've seen artwork on the front cover. Yeah. And it features many listers. And there's the angel and the demon versions from Angels and Demons. There's Tiny Robocop, Space Mumps, and one I didn't recognise.
Yeah, so they make a really big thing about this being their first fully painted cover. There's been 7 other fully painted covers before this.
Yep.
It's not even the first one that Colin Howard did, because he did 6 of those 7.
But isn't it the first one in Volume 2?
But they don't say that.
No.
They've done a series 1. They've forgotten the first one exists.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's pretty cool, though.
It is cool.
It's a nice cover.
Yeah.
It makes me wonder where it is.
Where what is?
With a lot of these original bits of artwork, like where is it now? Is it?
Oh, probably sold for 25p at auction in the 90s.
Yeah.
There's definitely a picture of it on Colin Howard's website, because I went and looked at it the other day, which is where I realised he'd done 6 of the others, because they were on there as well.
Nice.
He's done a lot of Doctor Who art and stuff like that as well. So it wouldn't surprise me if he's, sold some of them at conventions and stuff like that. Because it'd do well at that kind of thing.
Because as you said, we've got the the low lister, the high lister, mump lister, robo lister, old lister, and lister from Back to Reality when he wakes up and realises he's voter colonel.
That's the one I didn't recognise. Of course it's voter colonel.
Is it Patrick Doyle?
It's Sebastian Doyle.
Sebastian Doyle, you are right. No idea who Patrick Doyle is.
Does he play the xylophone?
I don't know.
I know that was Patrick Moore.
The picture of Sebastian Doyle, it does look like Craig Charles's sort of audition for a Spender/Boone sort of spin-off where he's a happy-go-lucky former firefighter or something that now solves crime.
I'd watch the fuck out of that.
Oh, so would I.
Patrick Doyle is a soundtrack composer. He's done stuff like Thor and some of the Harry Potter films and Death on the Nile and stuff like that. Lots of things that Kenneth Branagh is in because he's one of his mates.
Oh,
there we go.
Well, we've all tried to work with Kenny, darling.
Next up is the Smegatorial. And it does talk about Colin Howard, who did the front cover, and it also confirms that he's doing the tongue-tied cover, which was dead good. I remember owning that. It was dead good. It has a list of articles, and really weirdly has a picture of the man who built Starbug, but doesn't tell us his name.
Does later on, though. It's building suspense.
But it's still... It's wanky. Just tell us his name. That weirdly irritated me more than perhaps it should. I was like, what the fuck's his name?
It's Rocky.
Yeah, poor Rocky. Next up is Time After Time, a comic strip. And it made me smile that it features Chen, Peterson, and Selvin.
Yes, loved that.
This is one that I remember vividly because of the artwork on it, especially the sort of the bubbles around Lister's head when he sort of time dreams or whatever you want to say it. But the artwork in this is really, really good.
Oh, it's outstanding.
Yeah, Alan Burrows and Colin Howard. So another bit of Colin Howard artwork already.
Although Peterson, Selby and Chen look evil. They've proper got like grinning goblin face. It's good artwork, but they do look evil.
It's like impish, isn't it? The sort of thing. I like the fact that this is a sort of wibbly-wobbly, timey-wimey kind of story. There's lots of little bits of continuity throughout the series.
In my head, this would have made a really good clip episode of Red Dwarf. You know, like in Friends and all the other American sitcoms, they have like the desperately running out of time, so we'll do a everybody's remembering shit episode.
But the only good clip shows are the ones where they are taking the piss out of clip shows and it's not clips. It's completely fucking made up clips.
True. And there is one in this that we didn't see.
Yeah.
I mean, technically it might have been a part of Dad, had Dad been made. Yeah. But there's the moment where Lister's about to give birth, whereas all the other flashbacks were things that we recognised from specific episodes. I really liked that they went into the non-existent area between Series 2 and Series 3.
Yeah. It's interesting, isn't it? Because you've got, they've almost done it twice, in that you've got between 2 and 3, there could have been another series, and between 8 and Back to Earth, we could have had another series. So it is something that when it only dawned on me when I was looking at this, like, oh, you've done it twice, and I do like the looking at the, especially between 2 and 3, looking at things that happened because so much did change. Like you see in this glimpses of Holly transitioning and coming up with different things, like trying out the new hairstyle and all this kind of stuff. And I do like that they raised the point that Crichton didn't help with the birth because he wasn't fully repaired yet.
Yes.
Which is probably something fans have raised.
It also mentions about Crichton suddenly got a Canadian accent as well. Which,
I liked that.
I like that bit.
And that the Scutters did the birth.
It's just very, very good, isn't it?
Yeah.
It is. And it also, with the sort of Lister being in all times at once and, you know, seeing all these various different bits, reminded me of Dr. Manhattan from Watchmen.
Yeah.
It was really reminiscent of that. And at that point, obviously there weren't the movies yet. It had only, Watchmen had been out for 7 years, I think. So I think it would have been a bit of a deep cut. I know it was still fairly critically acclaimed.
I mean, the blue bubbles that are in this are very Dr. Manhattan shade.
Yes.
I like as well the point in this that he only comes round at points of high stress.
Yes.
So it's revealed that when there's 2 Rimmers, that for Lister was a massive stress.
Well, it would be, wouldn't it?
as big as finding out everyone's dead and as big as giving birth.
Yeah.
I like how it all ties up a bit at the end as well, that we found out it's a plan by current Lister to save everybody by doing a 4th dimensional body swap. But it didn't work.
It's just really clever.
Yeah, again, as an episode, it would really, really work. Also, I think as a kid, it made me chuckle because he writes "fat bastard" on a wall, but he fails. And
yes.
I giggled at, he was going to write "fat bastard."
Next up is News from the Dwarf, which is the regular feature where it gives you news about Red Dwarf. And some interesting ones. There is a 30cm Crichton kit.
Have you seen it?
I don't think I've ever seen it.
Okay, check your Facebook messages in just a moment. I'm about to send you a picture.
I've got a vivid memory of seeing it, so I think yeah.
I'll share this on the socials so that everyone else can see it. This is, after all, an audio medium, Colin.
Yeah, obviously, but I think you need to see it.
Okay.
There we go.
Yes, I have seen it. It's the exact picture I'm thinking of.
It's actually in a 2 or 3 issues time of the Smegazine.
Yeah.
Okay.
He looks fucking terrifying.
Yeah.
He looks constipated.
I would not be surprised if that particular Crichton went full on Chucky and started attacking people, because he looks like he fucking wants to.
Yeah. You're not wrong.
Share that on the Twitter feed when this episode goes out, because
I will. It was £37.95, and I've done my favourite trick of converting it to current money. £78.
That's a fair bit.
Yeah, that's a fair bit, but that is pretty right in comparison with a lot of those things these days.
It's a foot tall model.
Oh, is it a foot tall?
Yeah, it's fairly substantial. Yeah, it's not just like a little action figure. It's a kit build to build a foot tall, terrifying Crichton.
I like the fact you've got to put it in hot water to pose it.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a very 90s thing.
There's also some stuff about how you can get tickets to be in Britas's audience. I'd have liked that. And Craig Charles is reading Book of Heroic Failures for Radio 4. Wasn't able to find anywhere to listen to that, unfortunately.
I have got the book, though. I bought it from a jumble sale in probably about 93, 94-ish anyway.
Well, yes, but that's read by Colin Jackson Brown, not Craig Charles, and I'm not interested in that.
I know. I'm just saying I am aware of the book because I've got it.
I'd listen to a book read by Colin Jackson Brown.
I would also listen to a book read by Colin Jackson Brown, actually.
I'd just add loads of swearing in it.
Mr. fucking Tickle did this, and this.
Who's been eating my fucking porridge?
And apparently, Red Dwarf 7 is going to be released in 1994.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, wish it did. It would be better if they had.
It didn't.
If they'd still got the momentum. Unfortunately, circumstances happened.
And the final thing of note from this, I've added something to the specials list because I found the Joan Collins sitcom that was going to be directed by Ed Bye. It doesn't tell you what it is in this magazine, but I can confirm that it is called Mama's Back. It stars Joan Collins, Michael Gambon, Rupert Everett, Samantha Janus, Clive James, and was written by Ruby Wax.
Clive James?
It sounds like it was going to be an incredible sitcom. It didn't get picked up and I haven't watched it, but it is on YouTube. Special time, special time.
There's also the bit in there where the BBC were really, really keen on having a Christmas special.
Yeah.
Which I thought was quite significant because that obviously never happened.
No.
Dave might ask for it. That'd be quite interesting.
I don't watch much like TV as it's broadcast these days. Do Dave tend to do Christmas specials? Because the BBC always used to. On
its longer ones, they tend to. I'm sure there's ones for like Alan Davis.
Right.
Alan Davis's talking one and a few others. So if they really want to commit, it'd be quite nice for a Red Dwarf one. A Dwarf for Christmas.
Stranger things have happened. There was a Christmas special in season 2 of Chucky.
Fair enough.
And Chucky does drag.
There's a musical episode in Brave New Worlds that I'm yet to get to, but looks fantastic.
Also, it would make it so much easier for us to decide what to do for a Christmas episode of the podcast that year.
We've decided what we're doing for a Christmas special this year.
I know, but it took ages.
It did.
I can't remember what we decided on.
I'll send you the script.
Oh, God. Right, okay.
And the only other thing of note was that they've changed the season 1 release date again. And Woolies, you're going to get a free gift if you buy it from Woolies. If that doesn't fucking date this, I don't know what does.
I did lots of Googling to see if I could find out what that was, and unfortunately there was no information anywhere. Perhaps it will tell us in a further issue.
I like how we both Googled random shit and it didn't correspond with each other in any way, shape or form. Do you want to watch Mama's Back, starring Joan Collins, written by Ruby Wax, directed by Ed Bye?
Maybe.
Might be a Matt episode, that, Colin.
Yeah.
Maybe get Matt in.
Yeah.
We can put a bet on before we start watching it. How camp's it gonna be?
Very.
We could do like the old Right in the Childhood format where we talk about it before, have a little pause, watch it together, and then see how shit it is. Yeah. I mean, good it is.
Because obviously you've got Joan Collins there and that, but when you went Rupert Everett, it was like, oh, it's gonna be camp.
Samantha Janus? Whatever happened to Samantha Janus?
I think she does stage work now.
What was the song that she sang? No, moving on. Next up is From Hattie to Hilly to Holly, which is an article about Hattie Hayridge. Fascinatingly, for the tiny amount of lines she had, she was given an auto cue.
Yeah.
And then didn't need it, so they got rid of it. What a bizarre fact.
Doesn't she say that was only in the really early ones, though? Yeah.
Yeah. It was in the first appearance that she had it, and then when she came back full time, she was like, well, I'm going to learn it because it's not fair.
Yeah, exactly.
I like the idea of what she sits in as being described as a photo booth.
Yeah, because it's got all the curtains around it and stuff to make it dark. So, makes perfect sense. This is a brilliant interview.
It is.
Yeah. Jane Killick, I've noticed a lot of the really good articles are the ones that Jane Killick has done. You know, mark of quality when she's working on it. But, yeah, this is a absolutely lovely interview. There's insights like where she's talking about, because obviously they film Holly's sections separately to the rest of it. So they drew, she used to draw little arrows on her script so that she knew where the other characters would be standing, so she knew which direction to look in and stuff like that at which point. And there's a story in there that she's talking about when they were filming Polymorph. They were just about to do like the last scene with it, and it completely fell apart just before they were about to film it.
10 seconds too early, it fell apart.
Yeah. And also, the whole cast used to travel up from sort of London up to Manchester for filming in a private coach, and they'd all go and have a meal together, which is lovely. I really like that they were all so close, and they were all mates, and they just used to spend time together.
The thing that I picked out, I thought was really, really sad, that she had so little to do in Series 5 that she kind of didn't need to be there much at all, but she stayed and watched because she liked being a part of Red Dwarf. It's almost like the writing was on the walls, really.
I didn't read that as being particularly sad. I read that as she loved it so much that she wanted to be around it even when she wasn't needed.
Oh, and that's why I thought it was sad that, you know, the writing was on the wall. And I don't know whether this was done before or after she knew she wasn't going to be in season 6. It's probably after, isn't it?
This interview was after, definitely.
Yeah, but it just seemed really sad that she was that into it. She loved the role, and it was kind of taken away from her.
Yeah.
The few things in that I liked was how she said she would be on set and stand in the corner where the monitor would be that Holly would be on to deliver lines, which I thought was pretty cool. That she's probably got photos somewhere of just her with all the monsters, because she was never in any scenes with monsters, so she used to go over to them. Yeah. So I could just imagine somewhere there's just pictures of Hattie Hayridge like arm around a polymorph, just pointing at it with a massive grin. Something in this is like something I've seen little seeds going through it is Norman Lovett's not that nice a person. No. But she said she met him and he was like, "You've stolen my part." It's like, oh, don't be a dick, Norman.
Yeah, no, it's the other way around. She wasn't thinking that he would. She thought he'd sort of amicably left.
Yeah.
And was like, "Oh, I'm playing Holly in the next series," and he was really pissed off.
Yeah.
But yeah, they got on quite well afterwards, apparently.
Yeah. But I do like the thing when they were talking about the different versions of Holly and how Howard Burden does have a Holly budget, but it's never used.
Yeah.
Which makes me think that they could go, no, keep it. We'll use it in case we need something like a one-off. And when she was talking about the floating Holly, she was like, oh, it would have been nice to do that. And I was like, it would have been nice to have a floating Holly, but then it dawned on me in the mid-90s that would have been such a nightmare for them to do.
Yeah.
Unless, I mean, you could probably do it now, where she's walking around in the set, but she's got the green screen morph suit up to the neck, which may not have been brilliant for putting a comfortable performance if you're just wearing this skin-tight morph suit.
Also, the head would be sort of moving as if you were walking.
Yeah.
It wouldn't be smooth at all.
Yeah.
Or on roller skates or something.
Yeah.
Wow.
On a skateboard zooming around the set, that'd be awesome.
Just put her on one of those, like, chippies boards with wheels on.
Yeah.
Just like, I'm going over there. And she turns and looks and moves.
You know, that's how they did it for the Silence. Not the Silence, what were they called in Hush?
The gentleman in
The gentleman
Buffy.
in Hush. Yeah, in Buffy, that's actually how they did it.
Oh, is that what it was? They were just on a wheels.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But they had bodies.
They did.
They did. Next up is The Many Faces of Dave Lister, which is genuinely... I can't think of an article I've hated more.
It's absolute filler, isn't it? Yeah.
It's nothing, yeah. And this is the cover thing.
Yeah, and that really annoyed me. I just thought this is just wretched. Anyone who's a fan of Red Dwarf, what is this for?
I feel like what had happened here is they'd come up with the idea for the article title and the cover, commissioned the cover, and then thought, what are we going to write for this article? And then rushed it at the last fucking minute, because that's what it reads like.
Maybe that was the relationship with the readers at the time. It's like, look, we've got this painting. We're going to write 2 pages of absolute toss for this. And the fans were like, that's all right, because of the painting. Although we do get to see the Back to Reality Alpha Lister. Not for the last time in this issue either.
They've done articles like this a few times.
Yeah.
I think the umbrage I took was because it was the front cover and it didn't advertise anything else on the front cover.
Yeah.
And it was just, even of its kind, I think it's the worst of its kind.
Yeah.
It does make me wonder if Colin Howard had done the painting first.
Yeah, I think he did.
Yeah. Without being commissioned, he just did it, and then they just went, hey, shit, we're going to have to come up with something for this. You know, it's...
Yeah. Let's move on. Next up is an ad for Bandai Star Trek The Next Generation figures, and later on in the magazine, there's an advert for Jurassic Park toys, giant dinosaurs.
I had the Velociraptor in that advert, and I wish I'd still got it because it was so fucking cool. It roared and everything. It was amazing.
I mean, both of these things are cool, but they are clearly aimed at kids. And shall we look at the next article? The next article is incredibly adult. And it blows my mind that this magazine does this again and again and again. It has shit that's clearly for kids, and then shit that's so fucking adult that it's like, how did they not see that this was an issue?
Yeah.
Fucking hell.
So it's part 2 of Mimus Crossing.
I mean, it's absolutely batshit, and it's brilliant, and I enjoyed it, but what the actual fuck?
I didn't like this as much as part 1, gotta be said.
No.
I really liked part 1. Part 2 was a bit nothingy, really.
It was setting up the final bit,
Yes.
wasn't it?
Yeah.
Which I had the flashback of this quite vividly of, oh yeah, she remembers where to find $250,000 pounds and a massive cachet of drugs.
Yeah.
And interestingly, something I'd like to highlight that I was incredibly impressed with was him, her, them.
Yes.
A discussion about pronouns.
In 1993.
And a very positive, grown-up, intelligent, thoughtful, non-judgmental discussion of pronouns.
Yeah.
What the actual fuck? That's
By a
incredible.
group of gangsters called the Osmonds.
All right.
It's weird. But yeah, no, it is. I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. But then, it's they could have gone with it. But
Exactly.
I think that is... I may be completely wrong on this, but my perception on this is that there weren't the TERFs spreading the fucking hate agenda all the time.
No.
So at that point, because of that, I don't think people would have had that much of an issue with it.
No. And it's really fucking sad, isn't it, that it was better in 1993, a time period where we have called out a fuck ton of ick, that it was better for our trans brothers, sisters and siblings than it is now. Isn't that fucking insane?
I think it's more extreme now. Because I think at the same time, there's also a lot more representation and support for trans people. Whereas
Fair.
back then, it would have been... They wouldn't have the absolute hatred, but at the same time, they wouldn't have had the absolute support. Everything's polarised.
I can imagine for a lot of people in 93 that was a trans person.
Yeah, that's also probably fair.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. It would have definitely been very uneducated because, you know, I wouldn't have had a fucking clue. You know, it's only probably within the last 10 years that me being a cis, straight, white bloke have even sort of learnt that much about that kind of culture.
Yeah.
I don't know why I smiled then. I think for some reason your accent is just built to say the word bloke.
Blokey bloke bloke.
Next up is holograms. And my notes for this, I've lost the will to live. I've just written, just why?
Forgot it as soon as I read it. I had to go back and read it again, and I've forgotten it twice. Because I don't care. It's awful. Apart from the teddy bear.
I think they realise that at this point because you've got holograms on this one page. The next 2 pages are taken up with a poster.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then the page after that is fucking androids.
Yeah.
They're designed to take that page out, stick it on your wall so you never have to bother with holograms or androids.
I think you're right. And my notes read for holograms, just why. My notes read for androids, meh.
Yeah.
And my notes read for the pull-out poster, sultry cat, worried Crichton, and grumpy Rimmer and Lister. It's a crap poster as well.
The thing that you read your issue on, were you reading it with the double spread visible?
No.
Well, if you do what I did, which I had one where the double spread is visible, the line is very like, everyone's there, hits the middle, and then everyone else is there, and there's a very distinct missing bit.
Oh, wow.
Which I'm sure there isn't in the physical magazine, but on the digital version, it's just like everybody's like that.
A big gap, yeah, and misaligned.
I mean, that's the thing, isn't it? We read the digital version because of accessibility. We'd have had to have spent quite a lot of money to acquire all the magazines.
Yes.
And to be honest with you, as much as I would think it would be a nice thing, I'm not a memorabilia collector. I don't get any pleasure out of collecting expensive old shit for things that I like. I don't have anything like that I own, really.
It's a good job we've never taken you to the memorabilia fair at the NEC, and it might.
I'd have a nice look at all the nice things, but anything more than a £5, I just wouldn't want it.
One thing I do have to say about this particular issue's hologram section, there's nothing horribly offensive. Whereas, you know, we've had that quite often where there's been, like, you know, 13-year-olds writing letters in about how they want to jump off a wardrobe onto Hattie Hayridge and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Also, there's a section later on which feels like the bits from holograms that you possibly would actually want to know about, which is about other sci-fi stuff or continuity or something like that.
Well, that's the thing. They've basically split the letter section into 4 now.
Yes.
And we had enough fucking filler with the many faces of Dave Lister. We talked about earlier in this week, actually, how the first issue or 2 didn't feel like those extra 8 pages had got much filler. Just do another comic strip, get rid of this bollocks.
Yeah, there's definitely at least 8 pages of filler in this particular issue. But there's some really good stuff as well.
Oh, absolutely right.
I maintain Androids is not filler. The story's ramping up. There's tension there with Brooks' terminal software bug. They're all building towards the climax in JC's penthouse. who knows what's going to happen? I personally think everybody's going to blow up, but I can't remember how it finishes. So I'm really enjoying it.
Somebody's got to. We found its target audience.
Yeah.
Next up is the man who built Starbug. And you're right, we find out that his name is Rocky. And good, because good. It's actually a really interesting article with some stuff that I didn't know. A lot of the stuff that we read in the Smegazine would have been great at the time.
Yes.
But Wikipedia is a thing now. So we've always got to take a little bit of a step back and kind of try and look at it with a fairer eye.
Yeah.
But I had no idea that Starbug was originally going to be called White Midget.
Oh, I knew that.
Did you?
What I hadn't connected, really stupidly, is that it was going to be white. I mean, maybe the name is a fucking clue. But the reason that they changed it to green was because in one of the scenes that they knew they had coming up, it was going to have to crash into some snow. And obviously a white spaceship wouldn't show up, so they painted it green and then decided it looked more like a bug. So went with Starbug, which is great. I really like the bit where they're talking about how stuff like the thrusters are built from desk lamps.
Yes.
I remember about this sort of time, I'm fairly certain this would have been the same time that Thunderbirds was getting repeated. So I was massively into all of the Jerry Anderson stuff I could watch at the time. And I had a book about sort of like the making of loads of like, you know, Stingray and stuff like that. And there were loads of bits like that in there as well, where they were just making bits of the craft out of, you know, various household objects and stuff like that. I've always found that really fascinating.
Yeah. Blue Peter's Tracy Island thing was a massive thing in the 90s,
yes.
wasn't it? It was, yeah.
Did you have one?
No, I didn't, but I watched them make it, and I was just like, this is way too much work.
Yeah, I had one, but I didn't build it. I actually won it in a raffle.
Nice.
What, that someone else made?
Yeah, somebody made it at, it was Village Fate, a village in Pembrokeshire where my nan lived nearby, and my nan won it and gave it to me. And
amazing.
That summer, my mum had to, because my mum's a teacher, or was back then, she retired now, she had to bring the guinea pigs from her school home over the summer to look after them. So I've still got photos somewhere of Tracy Island being invaded by giant guinea pigs sort of crawling all over it.
Nice.
Amazing. See if you can dig that out as well, and I'll put it on the socials.
Yeah. I really enjoyed this interview. Again, it's another Jane Killick interview.
Yeah.
And the fact that the thing that impressed me was how much say he had over it, how it looked. I mean, he basically came up with it and then said to them, this is what I've built.
Yeah.
Which, on a show today, like, I can't imagine anyone in, like, Game of Thrones going, this is what we've built, and them going, cool. It would be, like, micromanaged down to the very nth degree. Whereas on this, they've just turned up and gone, I can imagine the money was so sparse.
Yeah.
Back then. The fact he turned up, and let's be fair, how good it looks.
Yeah.
That he turned up and like, look at this, they were like, that is way better than we were expecting. Like, I think they were probably expecting something that looked like Blue Midget, but bigger. Like a cereal box size Blue Midget.
And it's an absolutely iconic, I was trying to think of a better word than iconic, but there isn't one for it. It is an iconic design. It's one that, you know, people will have on T-shirts the same as they've got Starship Enterprise or, you know, Thunderbird 2 or something like that. It's up there with them. Whereas Blue Midget definitely isn't. And I don't think even Red Dwarf itself.
No, it's more iconic than the Red Dwarf.
It's like an X-Wing.
Yeah.
It's a proper classic sci-fi spaceship.
I like the fact that he said in it that he was really tired of like flat panelled spaceships.
Yeah.
And I like the fact as well, he took it to Mike Tucker from the special effects and he went, I thought you were going to do that. No, you didn't, Mike. You had no idea. But he also talks about in this how he built other things for Dwarf. Like, he helped build the sirens.
Yeah, and a mini bazookoid.
I loved the mini bazookoid, and it very rarely turned up after that. Maybe I think Craig Charles got his hands on it, and that was it.
He also made the Space Weevils.
As I was getting to, like, how can we make something that we have to put in Craig Charles's hands that he can't break? I know, he's got to eat it.
Brilliant.
Fair.
The explanation about him being called Rocky is odd, and it doesn't really connect him till Sylvester Stallone at all.
No.
But so it's a bit of a bait and switch, because I was thinking, like, oh, maybe he worked on, I don't know, which gets mentioned later on, Judge Dredd or something like that. And it's like, oh no, it's his mates were pissed and thought he'd make a good Thai boxer, which Sylvester Stallone has never done.
No. It was a really nice article. I think I find the articles that aren't obvious, like interviews with the cast.
The behind-the-scenes sort of stuff, yeah.
I've always found those more interesting than the interviews because we've got conventions, because we've got hundreds of things on YouTube these days. Whereas these things are more rare to the 2023 eye.
And we've still got another one later on in this issue.
Next up is news from the Omnizone. And apparently there's going to be a new 90-minute Doctor Who. That did happen. And it flopped, and my heart broke until 2003.
I've got some interesting news I found out about these news from the Omnizone sections.
Go on.
So, Adrian Rigglesford, the author of these sections and also Junior Encyclopedia of Space, he writes those bits as well. The disgraced Adrian Rigglesford.
Oh dear.
Don't worry, nothing like the Elvis dude. Notorious for making up false quotes, usually from dead people. Basically, he was caught out not long after Stanley Kubrick died because he published a interview in The Guardian, I think, which he claimed was Stanley Kubrick's last ever interview on the set of Eyes Wide Shut. And Stanley Kubrick there was a guy working for him who was an archivist, where any time Kubrick's name was even mentioned, they kept a copy of the article. And this guy had to read through everything. And he was reading this and was like, Kubrick didn't do any interviews on Eyes Wide Shut, so this is clearly not true. And then he was reading through it and he was like, yeah, none of this ties up with what Stanley Kubrick would have said. The same guy also wrote a Doctor Who companion book where he'd got quotes from William Hartnell that were also most likely completely fabricated.
Oh, that's wretched.
And he also stole 56,000 historical photos from the Daily Mail, which, fair enough, if you're going to steal from anyone, steal from the fucking Daily Mail because they're cunts. But yeah, then sold them to, like, memorabilia shops and got caught out and was jailed for 18 months for it.
Jesus.
He wrote some Doctor Who, not Doctor Who episodes, but I don't think they were big finished things. I think they might have been like little novelisation type things.
Right.
But yeah, he's got the distinction of, at one point on his Wikipedia page, it said he was the only person to have ever had a Doctor Who story officially published while he was in jail. So yeah, generally take stuff he said with a pinch of salt because he makes up a lot of shit.
Right.
That ties into the thing at the end of this article where he talks about the BBC are planning an epic to end all epics.
Yes.
In sci-fi. And I was thinking about it, it's like, I don't remember anything massive epic to it, unless, Crime Traveller, but...
That was a few years off yet.
Yeah.
Maybe it got delayed. Maybe they're like, this is it. We just need the right person to be Jeff Slade. But also, I didn't realise that some of the older Doctor Who's were colourised.
Yeah.
I think I remember that at the time. Yeah.
Have they been colourised for things like Blu-ray releases, or have they stayed black and white?
It was for VHS that it was done originally, and they weren't great.
No, okay. I did wonder, because I've not... I mean, the big news recently, and not to date the recording, is all classic Who is coming to iPlayer.
Apart from The Unearthly Child.
Why?
A dude who's like the son of one of the people that wrote it, so currently has the rights, won't let the BBC use it, and he's being an absolute bellend about it, apparently.
He hates he hated the fact it was a woman cast as the Doctor, or...
I don't know.
Whoa.
He doesn't like the fact that the new Doctor's a black man, apparently, as well.
Really? What
Yeah.
a cunt.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, there's lots of stuff about Doctor Who and news on Doctor Who. They report that Stallone is going to be Dredd, like you said. Quantum Leap is ending. It is sad. It's just news from the 90s, really.
The thing he does raise about the Stallone Judge Dredd film is he does say, well, how long do you think he's going to keep the helmet on?
Which was absolutely the main sticking point that people had with it.
Yeah.
I didn't hate the
just-
film, but Dread, the Carl Urban one, is fucking great.
Brilliant.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
is.
Got a copy of it over there. It's amazing.
Didn't make enough money for a sequel, unfortunately.
Sadly, yeah.
They keep talking about it. They're saying there might be a TV series.
Well, there was talk of a telly-series. And the thing about the TV series is that probably would have happened if Carl Urban hadn't been cast in The Boys.
Carl Urban's is leading, well, not leading, but he's up there in leading the push for some Dread of some form.
Cool.
So maybe, because The Boys has an end, so when The Boys ends, they might go, that was really good. Carl's a really good bankable name. What do you want to do now? Dread. Want to do Mega City 1. Bring on Judge Dredd. Bring on Judge Death.
Absolutely. Judge Death all the way.
Yeah. Played by James Corden.
Maybe not.
No.
Next up is Red Dwarf Episode 1, Coded Echo. It's a comic strip, and it's really odd and really short. I think it was a bit weird, but it could be cool in the future.
I really didn't like this one. Yeah, it might be better later on. This is basically, it's the story of different people playing the Total Immersion video game.
Yeah.
So, it's a bit Red Dwarf USA, isn't it? Really? Because it's all
Suppose.
muscle-bound, competent people by the looks of it.
Stylistically, it looks like Viz.
It does, very much so.
Does.
Yeah.
I think there's so much expanded universe stuff from Back to Reality that they've used in the Smegazines. Either it wasn't what they wanted to do, like stuff in between series or episodes, or they weren't allowed to. It just seems like almost half of the stuff is inspired by, well, maybe not half, but a lot of the stuff is inspired by Back to Reality, much more than anything else in the comic strip.
Yeah, they've got a lot of mileage out of it, haven't they? Yeah. So Davey Francis is the artist. He's not written for Viz, but he has done artwork for Oink, which was
That was a children's version of
sort
Viz,
of kids'
right?
Viz, basically. Yeah,
Yeah.
You know that Viz is still going?
yeah,
Yeah.
I had no clue.
yeah. The top tips are still absolutely going strong.
I'm sure there's a few different Twitter accounts, which one is top tips from throughout the year. I follow one which is just a random Garfield strip from the archives
Right.
every day, and I'm sure there's one which is a Viz strip from the archives every day as well.
Yeah, wouldn't surprise me.
But no, Viz in its publication form is still going. You struggle to get it from a newsagent now, but you can subscribe. And I was talking to some friends of mine, a lesbian couple, who fucking love Viz, and they subscribe to it, but they didn't know that there's a Fat Slags film.
It's probably for the best.
I was going to say, isn't it one of the worst films ever made? Not in a good way.
No, and even I'm not sure I want to do a special on it.
No, that's a Matt one. We'll not tell him. We'll tell him it's a really good adaptation. And then he can wonder why he's watching it on his own.
Maybe we'll put that up for vote at some point. Maybe people can decide if we watch.
Is there a
Fat
Red Dwarf
Slags.
connection?
Ed, bye.
Ed, bye.
Oh, right, yeah. Fucking hell.
I think even he says it's shit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I suppose it's more of a fucking connection than Gapper.
Next up is the subscription offer, and it was £18 a year, which seems super cheap.
Yep.
Considering what's about to happen, it's a waste of time.
Yes.
Oh shit, yeah, good point. There's only 5 more issues left, isn't there?
They didn't know that at this point, though, to be fair.
Clearly not. That's followed by Read Any Good Books Lately, and there are reviews of A World Out of Time by Larry Niven, and A Maze of Death by Philip K. Dick.
I haven't read either of them. I'm aware of both of the authors, obviously.
Well, yeah.
They're very well respected.
I've never read any Philip K. Dick.
You've never read any Dick?
No. Well, no.
Did you just laugh at me saying you've never read any Dick, Colin?
Of course I did.
Brown?
Of course I did.
For fuck's sake.
I'm a very childish man.
I've never read any Dick in book form.
I've got a copy of Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep, but I've not read it yet.
Right. You've just looked at Dick rather than read Dick.
He keeps it on a shelf.
People actually listen to this tat.
I did.
Yeah.
Unsubscribing in droves.
Hey, we're promoting reading. You listeners out there, get out there and get some Dick.
Next up is the Cat Bible. And I think this is a really, really cool concept.
Yeah.
It's got a really very Red Dwarfy feel with the borderline offensive anti-religious element of it. And it reads like the Bible, and it's really funny in its inaccuracy of what actually happened in Red Dwarf. This is for heavier fans.
Yeah.
Red Dwarf, compared to something like the fucking Lister article. This is what I want from this magazine.
I really like this. It reminded me of Terry Pratchett's Truckers, Diggers and Wings books, the Bromeliad, because that's got loads of little sections of the Books of Nome, which are written in the exact same style. When I was a little bit older than this, so a few years after this, when we were at school, our high school had an unofficial school newspaper, which was subversive and kept getting banned all the time, called the Daily Jeff, which was named after one of the PE teachers. And me and a few of my mates used to write for it. And one of the things that we had in there was the Books of Pembo, which was based on Mr. Pemberton, who was like one of the teachers at the school. And basically, we'd been doing about the start of the Mormon religion in RE lessons. And we wrote these Books of Pembo entirely based on, it was just sort of spoofing that. Because the start of the Mormon religion, you've got, there's this guy who found these like magical tablets, I think they were, that only he could read. And if anybody else looked at them, they just looked blank. He could read them because he'd got special glasses or some kind of bollocks like that. And we just incorporated all that. And so writing in that sort of style, it's always amused me.
I bet as well that went down, like, all the teachers were like, we need to end this, apart from the English teachers who were like, hang on a minute, this is great.
It was basically split almost 50-50, because you've got quite a lot of the teachers who would confiscate it as often as they could, and then would read it.
Yeah.
But yeah,
so
I've still got a few copies. It was a lot of fun.
So what you're saying is you were the inspiration for Press Gang?
I was just one of the writers. I was not the instigator or, fully responsible, but it was less serious than Press Gang. We were taking the piss with absolutely everything that we did. But also, in this Cat Bible bit, you have the absolutely fucking fantastic line, Petson, because they've got Peterson's name wrong, Petson begat Chen, who begat Selby.
I loved that.
Yeah. Utterly fucking fantastic. And it's only half a page. I want more of it.
Yeah, it really shows as well how the cat thing, the cat world, is very much the undiscovered ocean of Red Dwarf.
Yeah.
In that you could have, you could have done a whole series arc of, finding out more about the cats.
Yeah, and the lore.
Especially going into what we're about to talk about in the Smegazine, and something that they mentioned there's so much that could have been done in later series that I think got knocked on the head because of Waiting for God, which we're about to talk about, and how they didn't like it.
Yeah.
And they didn't really investigate the cats again until Promised Land.
Yes, which we'll get onto.
Which we'll get onto, yeah.
At some point.
Eventually. 2026.
Probably. Next up is indeed the article that looks behind the scenes on Waiting for God. And yeah, there was some very sad stuff about the actor who kept forgetting his lines and how Craig Charles really defended him, which I thought was really nice to read.
The thing I didn't realise about that was he'd learnt them all and then they changed his speech.
Yeah.
And that's what threw him off. It wasn't that he was completely incompetent. He just couldn't remember his new stuff on late notice.
Yeah, which is fair.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think he must have been in his 70s at that point.
I had a look on his IMDb profile and he'd been acting since early 50s.
Yeah.
So basically, before that, people didn't really have TV at home very much, did they? So basically, the start of TV in the UK, he was there.
There's a bit I kind of disagree with in this, which is they were talking about how we should have gone outside or we should have gone elsewhere for the cat temple because it just looked like a room. And it's like, well, you are on a spaceship.
Yeah.
It's never going to look like super great.
Yeah.
I mean, I think if they'd done it in like Series 7, imagine what they'd have done in Series 7 with the CG and the budget. We'd have seen cat cities. We'd have seen, a massive temple. They could have just had one shot of them like what they did with the large tunnel with them just walking through a city, CG'd onto like a still, but them just walking through this giant burnt out city and then finding the cat temple. But, you could have done that. I mean, you technically could have done that here, like the Monty Python thing of the cat temple. The cat temple is only a model. That kind of thing. I kind of disagree with it because it was like, well, it is still a room on the ship. But then if you look if they follow the continuity of the Smegazines, then there's a whole city, well, virtually a country downstairs that they've yet to explore.
Yeah.
And they're still yet to explore, really. They've still never bothered going down there and having a look.
I wonder what Rob Grant and Doug Naylor think of that, though. Because obviously all those bits weren't written by them, so it's not their continuity or their canon. And I think from reading this article, they absolutely fucking hated the episode.
Yeah.
So that would be why they didn't expand on that so much. But I'd be interested to see what happens in Promised Land later on.
Yeah. Also, there's finally the truth behind some propaganda I feel that's been going on throughout the whole show, which is the Scutters worked most of the time.
Yes, I remember. I read that bit. Yeah.
Yeah, Peter Ragg defending the Scutters.
I mean, he would, but
Okay.
Also, the idea of the toaster coming back.
Yeah, we looked at the actor who originally played the toaster because of this article, because they said that he was the warm-up guy, and he just got the gig because he was doing that. He was a magician, not an actor.
Yeah,
Yes.
John Lenihan, yeah.
Yeah.
He's a really good magician.
They did that a few times because Tony Hawk was the warm-up guy for a bit for them, wasn't he?
Yeah, yeah.
And obviously he ended up being the voices of loads of different things. And a very successful skateboarder.
No.
He skateboarded around Ireland on a fridge.
He did.
Yeah.
And skateboarded to Moldova to play tennis.
What? I do like the idea that Lenihan said that they were talking at one point about an episode where the toaster took over the ship.
Yes.
That you could make a proper, horror episode of trying to get to the control room where Lister puts the toaster in the control room to get away from it, only to find the toaster's taken over the ship, and they have to work their way there.
So your concept you just came up with is a little bit different, but I was going to say that that's a little bit similar to Queeg.
Sort of.
Maybe it's the idea of developed into Queeg, because it was Series 1.
Maybe.
I must say, I do prefer John Lenihan to David Ross.
Yeah, well,
Yeah, me too.
understandable.
And
I wouldn't know the song Fly Me to the Moon as early in life as I did if it wasn't for John Lennon as Talkie Toast.
Yeah, fair. That's where I first heard it, absolutely.
Yeah. And I still
Me
sing
three.
it to myself now and don't get past "Let Me" in the line. when I'm muttering around or doing something, I will get to "and let me" and then just stop. I could learn the rest of it, I just don't want to.
no, quotable dwarf.
Do you start it with, "Welcome to the Starlight Ballroom"?
Hey. Yeah.
Brilliant.
Yeah. If we ever do Shipwrecked and Comatose live, I will sing just that bit.
That's a threat.
To open the show.
And I can confirm we will never be doing Shipwrecked and Comatose live.
Really? Oh.
No, I think we should definitely do Shipwrecked and Comatose live. It's just where and when and how, isn't it? Next up is a day in the life of a bogbot. And the new artwork is fucking great. And I just absolutely adored this strip.
It's grim as fuck, though.
Yeah.
There's a lot of poo in it.
Yeah, it's really gross. It's massive gross out humour. It's... Yeah, the panel with the penis. I mean, fuck.
I love the idea of Lennon and McCartney, the mechanical goldfish, having a defence system, though.
Oh, yeah.
That's fucking great.
I love the fact, and I kind of refuse to believe that Rimmer's way of checking the waste disposal is to put his head in it.
Yeah, fair.
I like the reference to Big and Bouncy.
Big and bouncy. Also, did you notice that sometimes when you get the readout from Crichton's POV is when it shows Lister coming in on his way to the loo, it says awooga, awooga, awooga.
I did notice that, yes. So I googled Big and Bouncy.
Gosh.
I think that is the magazine that Adrian Mole used to read.
It was.
Yeah.
It was a random Adrian Mole reference. But because of this, I googled Big and Bouncy. And if you want a bouncy castle in Leeds, there's a company called Big and Bouncy.
Just come back from Leeds as well. Although, as a bigger chap, I always look out for plus-size clothing places. And while I was in Leeds, I did see one, and they do have the web address of bigboys.co.uk.
Really?
And my immediate thought was, that could go wrong.
I adored this strip, and I liked the reference to Terraform with the kind of almost Terminator-style stuff from Crichton's point of view. That was a really nice, deep cut, clearly written by fans, and it was gross, silly, full of references. Brilliant. Absolutely fucking brilliant.
I love the reference of anything can happen in the next half hour.
Yes.
Which is, I think, a slightly forgotten, phenomenally good tagline in a TV series. And I kind of wish it came back for something else.
I love
the
Stingray.
fact that Crichton swallows the fish is, it's a bit... The thing, I think the best piece of art in this whole thing is the close-up of Rimmer's flared nostrils. When he sticks his head in the pipe and Crichton's penis extension sees him, and it's just close-up and it... There's in sometimes, like, Lister can look strange in some of these strips sometimes. The cat can, but they always manage to get... I found Hattie Hayridge, they've always managed to get good when they draw her, and they always do a good Rimmer. I don't remember particularly seeing a duff Rimmer in any of these Smegazines.
Next up is The Big Noise, which is an article that interviews Keith Mays, the sound supervisor of Red Dwarf. And I think, like I said before, I fucking love these kinds of articles.
I liked it, but I think it just went past the line of... just went into boring techie bollocks.
I really like the boring techie bollocks.
I like boring techie bollocks, but I think it just went that little bit too far. I think if they pulled back a bit more...
Yeah.
And also the length of this one, I think if Jane Hillick had done this one...
True.
I think it would have been better. Because this... when they said, like, oh, we dragged him down the pub or whatever... It's like, it feels like that.
Yeah.
But it feels like they put everything in and didn't take it out.
I quite liked it because there was loads and loads of random shit in there that I genuinely didn't know. Pulling out things that I found interesting. It was supposed to sound more like Star Wars than Doctor Who.
Yeah.
It was significantly more difficult than a lower low. I'm like, of course it was more difficult than a lower low. The one thing I really liked was the idea of catting up the way Danny John Jules spoke and distorting his voice to make it purry. I'm glad they didn't, but it was a nice idea.
He gets nominated for a BAFTA for Drop the Dead Donkey, but he doesn't for Red Dwarf, which was considerably more work.
Yeah. I find stuff like this really interesting. Stuff like he's basically a Foley artist, so he's experimenting to go around hitting random things to see how they sound, to see what noises you can make out of it. Ben Burt is a legendary Foley artist, sound supervisor, who did the Star Wars movies, and I've got a book that's him talking about all the sound effects that he made that's got, like, you know those books you used to get when you were a little kid when you got like the buttons that you press for sound effects? It's like that but more sophisticated, because it's just like you select the number and it'll play the sound effects. You know, it's got stuff like the blasters in Star Wars were made by hitting a cable. So they've got like a really taut cable, and you hit it and it goes like choom sort of thing. They'd like blend loads of different sounds. Things like for a monster roar, they'll do things like blending a cow's moo with a lion's roar and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Also, you've got a bit where he's talking about the sound editing, where he's sort of moving the different sounds, you know, a couple of frames so that they fit perfectly. That stuff like that I do that when I'm editing a podcast. I'll quite meticulously sometimes move like half a word and swap it with another one. You know, if somebody's said a word slightly weirdly, I can sometimes recreate it from other bits of words that they've said and fix it that way. So I like the sort of nerdery on that side, because it's stuff that I can relate to. I had a look at the other stuff that he's done in his career as well. He's worked on like music shows like Top of the Pops and CD UK, but then he's done loads of comedy stuff like Hello, Hello, Only Fools and Horses. He'd worked on Heil Honey, I'm Home.
Yes.
Which was the cancelled after one episode sitcom about Hitler and Eva Braun. And he also worked on What's That Noise, which I'd forgotten about. What's That Noise is it was a kids' music show that was all about music. It's all about like the technical side of music that Craig Charles hosted in the early 90s. Can't find any full episodes. I found a few clips, including the episode where Napalm Death were on there, which is they play You Suffer, which is, for anyone not aware, it's 1.3 seconds long.
What?
Lovely chaps, Napalm Death.
If any of the listeners have listened to my other podcasts, We Dig Music or Through This Month's Issue, and we have mentioned Napalm Death, you've heard that song, because I blend that song into the background every time the name Napalm Death is said. Every single time. You're a ridiculous being. But yeah, You Suffer by Napalm Death is an absolute classic.
Have either of you seen Napalm Death live?
I have, yes.
Yes, I have too, yeah. Even though I was there going, this isn't really my thing, they were a bloody good show.
Yeah. And it is my thing.
Yeah. I like stuff like that, but I'd never really listened to Napalm Death, and I walked away like, that was actually an excellent show.
Their first album, Scum, Side 1 and Side 2 are completely different bands. I can't remember if there's one band member that's the same on both, but it may well be that there are no band members the same on Side 1 and Side 2, because they're a band where they've got none of the original band lineup at all.
Wow.
But the guys that are in the band now have been doing it for 30-something years.
Yeah.
They just fluctuated a hell of a lot in the really early days.
I love that when you go to a gig when you think it's not going to be your thing, but you're a bit like, fuck it. I took my friend Matt to see, not our Matt, but a different Matt, to see Solar Fake on Friday, because no one else wanted to go, and I'd got a ticket, and he was like, all right. And he came out saying, well, I listened to them on Spotify and thought they were shit, but that was a great gig. So I'll definitely take that as a win.
Yeah,
Some bands
definitely.
are like that, though, aren't they? You have to see them live. I can't remember what they were called now, but one at the venue I used to work at, they used to let outside promoters book their shows, and somebody booked like a drone metal band, and people were lying down, and I was walking around like over people, just like going, and I was like, yes, I haven't taken mushrooms today, but but the band was actually pretty good, and they were supported by, it was someone who was in Boards of Canada. It was their
I want to
spin-off.
see Boards of Canada so bad.
This was a good 10 plus years ago.
Yeah.
I think it was called Christ. I think the spin-off was called Christ.
Okay.
And he was really good. But initially walking into it, I was like, I'm probably not going to like this. And initially I was like, oh, it's pretty good. But I didn't walk out. I bought his album. But again, listening to it at home, it's like, it's not the same.
I've had that so many times with support bands where I bought the album and then it's just nowhere near as good as they were when you saw them live. Yeah.
And that's the exact same thing happened to me with the support band for Solar Fake that I saw on Friday. Listened to their album a couple of times over the weekend. Cack. Really fucking disappointed. Anyway, a last thing I want to say about this article, rather than talking about music, there are other podcasts for that, such as We Dig Music and Free with This Month's Issue.
Good call.
I really enjoyed the stereo versus mono in the 90s conversation.
Yes.
I had no idea how difficult it was to work with stereo at that period of time.
Yeah. Some systems where if you had the wrong one, you'd completely lose bits of the sound.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's interesting, Zora talks about in this that they always made Red Dwarf in stereo, and then they had to turn it to mono for television.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, that's possibly why you didn't get nominated for a BAFTA. if everything was in like proper stereo at that point, you probably would have won year after year after year.
Yeah.
But the thing last thing I'll say is he's talking about other things he's worked on, which was that he's talking about the 10%ers, which I know we're going to get to at some point. Also, he talked about something that Channel 4 are doing called The Posse, which is an all-black stand-up comedian show.
Yeah.
Which Robert Llewellyn is script editing.
Yes.
Oh, why?
Which is, of all the people... I think the only way that could have been slightly worse would go Chris Barry's doing it, because Chris Barry, I think, would be a bit more... So why are we not talking about classic cars? I don't remember The Posse making it to air, or if it did, it must have been called something else. But also he did the Winter Olympics, and he did things for Euro Disney, which I thought was pretty cool.
Yeah.
Next up is the Junior Encyclopedia of Space. And it's the usual smart arsery pre-Smegups, and probably partially why Smegups was a little bit kind of contemptible to people like this. I did pick something that I thought was vaguely interesting, that Mel Bibby has the Rimmer painting.
Yep.
And that when you are in a live audience, there are certain things that are pre-recorded and played to you on a screen. So it wasn't the worst one ever, but it's still...
I actually like the fact they explain how Hudson went to Red Dwarf and not the Nova 5.
Yeah.
I thought that would have worked. It seemed to be them like trying to fill in canon it's just continuity mistakes, isn't it? Basically, them trying to work out why the cast can remember, why the crew can remember White Hole. It's summed up quite nicely with the fact they point out that Crichton could just be wrong because he's never seen one before. No one has.
Yeah.
So he could be wrong because he's the first person to see one.
Yeah. Next up is the remarkable Red Dwarf database, which is questions about things that aren't even Red Dwarf. What the fuck? I realised that the internet wasn't a thing, but this is stretching it.
They do mention Sapphire and Steel. We have just lost David McCullum. I don't know if you've seen the thing. This will date the episode slightly. That it's been revealed that he made albums back in the 70s, and that one of them, the instrumental tracks he made, is the sample from the next episode.
Yes.
The Dr. Dre song, the boom, boom.
Yeah, I knew that.
That bit at the start. That's one of his songs. He sampled David McCallum.
Yeah. From The Man from U.N.C.L.E.
Yeah. They point out Danny John Jules is in Little Shop of Horrors.
Yes.
Yes.
That's a good bit, because pre-internet, that's the kind of thing that you might have heard rumours about but wouldn't be able to find him, because it's such a, it's not a particularly big part from what they're saying on there. It's a very long time since I've seen it. Yeah. But it tells you where to look out for him, so that is cool.
Yeah. Also the film of Craig Charles's brother Emile.
Yes.
The Fruit Machine in 1989 with Robbie Coltrane. That'd be quite interesting. I'd be quite interested, even if we didn't do it, I'd be quite interested to see if I could actually find it.
Have a look, see if you can find it, maybe put it on your specials list.
Yeah.
And the final article is a comic strip, Dwayne Dibley Part 5. It's quite short, which I know you don't like, Colin.
Yeah.
It has become kind of naff because of that. I'll be honest, I think I agree with you. But there's a good gag about the paper truck, and I quite liked the to be consummated as the
and
the
it's
end.
It's got brilliant Nigel Kitching artwork, which it's had consistently all the way through.
I love the design of the voter colonel. He reminds me of, if either of you have read Preacher.
Yeah,
of course I have.
He reminds me of, what's his name?
I know the dude you mean, but I can't think the fucking name, yeah.
Yeah. One of the main characters in Preacher, one of the main villains, does look a bit like the voter colonel in this. Also, we get very 90s the Fatal Sisters,
yeah,
which sound like a great band. And I bet their album lives up to it, even if you're not watching them live.
And then we've obviously got next month in the Smeg, which we'll have a quick look at, so we know what we're looking at tomorrow in our final episode of this run. There is going to be a campaign for Danny John Jules' Tongue-Tied to make Christmas #1. It wasn't, it was Mr. Blobby.
Yeah.
And there's going to be more news, interviews, comic strips, and the conclusion of Dwayne Dibley. Nothing I'm particularly looking forward to from that list, to be honest with you. It was quite vague.
Did Tongue-Tied get released at Christmas?
No.
No, it didn't, did it? No.
Blobby, blobby, blobby!
I did own the cassette as a child. I was 11.
There's a guy I know that works in a chart return store at the time. So they were one of the shops where their sales were being counted towards the Christmas #1. Basically, it was Mr. Blobby or Babe by Take That. And
yes.
Every time that somebody bought a copy of the Take That single, they scanned 2 copies of Mr. Blobby.
Oh.
Good news. The Fruit Machine, typed it into YouTube, comes up straight away, and it's in decent quality. It's actually listed as The Fruit Machine brackets LGBT UK film.
Well, if it's gay shit, I'm in. So, boys, what was your least favourite thing this month? Colin?
I think it was Red Dwarf.
Really?
I thought it was a bit rubbish. Got potential to be good, but that one wasn't.
I think that's why I didn't really dislike it, because I think it is going to be good.
Fair.
Carl?
I think for me it was, The Faces of Lister.
Yeah, and that's my choice too.
There was nothing there.
For me, I think that may well genuinely be the worst thing we've actually read in the entire run of these Smegazine episodes. I really, really disliked it.
Do you know what? I'm going to change mine.
Unanimous.
Shit.
Unanimous. Yeah. All right, Colin, what was your favourite?
Hattie Hayridge interview was utterly fantastic. Really loved it. Really, really, really nice to read. It was lovely.
Carl?
I think for me it was the Man Who Built Starbug. I think it's
also great.
The interview with Rocky.
All 3 of the interviews were fantastic in this issue.
I agree. And the comic strips were all exceptionally good as well this time. There was a lot of cack, but when it was good, my goodness, it was good. And I have picked A Day in the Life of a Bogbot because I just loved the gross out. I thought it was kind of stuck out like a sore thumb, particularly after we'd seen the adverts for kids' toys. I really, really enjoyed it. And I do tend to pick a comic strip because I kind of like the comic strips more than anything else in there.
That's fair, they're great.
Right. So instead of doing our socials, what I want you to do is I want you to recommend a obscure band that you really like, that you would like people to maybe check out. Carl.
Oh, okay. I'd say Random Hand. A lot of people say they're pop punk, but they're a bit heavier than that. From Bradford, they've got the trombone player in there as well. I know them. I saw them a very long time ago on a package tour with Sonic Boom 6 and a few other bands, and they're absolutely excellent. And they've just released a new album after 8 years off, and it's their first time their album's charted, which they're very, very happy about.
Brilliant. Colin.
Such a fucking difficult question because I could talk for hours and hours and mention fucking thousands of bands.
You've got 30 seconds.
Yeah, that's the difficulty. It's deciding which fucking one in 30 seconds. I'm going to go with Svalbard. They're sort of black metal band, but really melodic at the same time. They've got a woman called Serena Cherry is their main singer, but she shares vocals with the other guy in the band whose name I always fucking blank on. She's an amazing guitarist as well. She's had a side project called Noctule, which was a black metal band based on the Skyrim and Elder Scrolls lore. Brilliant. Which is pretty badass. Very geeky. But yeah, Svalbard's, they've got a new album called The Weight of the Mask, which is absolutely fucking fantastic. Very, very heavy in parts, but incredibly melodic at the same time. And there's a track called How to Swim Down that doesn't have any screamy vocals on it at all. So if you're a bit averse to that, have a listen to How to Swim Down by Svalbard.
They have popped up on my TikTok feed. Quite a bit, actually.
They are fantastic. They're really good live as well.
For me, I did mention Solar Fake earlier, and that kind of gives you an indication of the kind of music I'm listening to at the moment. I listen to a decidedly childish genre that's kind of, well, let's just call it synthwave. I'm going to mention a band called Dance with the Dead because they are great and they are the soundtrack to the 90s action film that I never knew I wanted. And when I saw them live, they came on stage, didn't say a fucking word, started playing. Then I noticed they've got no microphones because they don't have a vocalist. They played a 90-minute set, didn't say a word, didn't play a fucking encore, just played 90 minutes of super music, massive flex, and it was great, and it is weird as fuck, synthy metal.
John Carpenter's on their album as well.
Is he?
Yeah, I've been listening to, I can't remember which one it is now, it's the one with the driver looking back over the seat.
That is their most recent album.
Yeah, the first track's got John Carpenter playing on it, which for them must have been nipple-erectingly exciting.
Awesome.
Yeah, they're really good. If you like that, Mark, you'll like Carpenter Brute as well.
Oh, Carpenter Brute, fucking great.
I love Carpenter Brute. And on that note, while we're wanking over music, thank you for listening to Shipwrecked and Comatose, and until next time, until tomorrow.
So which fatal sister are you?
Shipwrecked and Comatose, a Red Dwarf podcast, was created and produced by Mark Adams and Kurt North. You can find us on Twitter at Red Dwarf Pod, and we are part of the We Made This Podcast network.
Do you know your Daleks from your Drashings?
Or your Zygons from your Zagreus?
Do you know what the TARDIS stands for?
And do you know which Doctor Who stories featured Kevin Grimlock, the cyborg T-Rex that became the Doctor's companion?
Then this is a Doctor Who podcast for you. I'm Baz Green, and each fortnight I chat to my son Ben.
Hello.
And the occasional guest as we cover 60 years of Doctor Who on TV, Big Finish, and more.
And I did really enjoy that one. Except that wasn't really actual pirates, it was Badger pirates in space, but it was still piratey.
Badger pirates in space?
Yes. But I am willing to make an exception for pirates this episode.
Donald Sumter is amazing. I love the fact that he just pops up. He just pops up. Probably Rassilon. Probably.
Well, they do confirm later on he is.
I think they do.
Yeah, he says I'm Rassilon the Redeemer.
Of course he does. Bloody hell.
And he has the gauntlet as well, which gives the hint of that.
Yeah.
I'm nodding profusely.
Yeah. Very proper classic Doctor Who as well. I love it as well.
Yes.
In a week has done more for the show than for the last 5 years.
I do like how Ross D. Davies is kind of the PR spokesman for the Centurion special. That's quite fun.
Yeah. And he's also saying, oh, well, Jodie and Chibnall still have an episode left. I'm not going to tread on their feet, but he is 14, just so you know, for the filming purposes. And a week later, oh, yeah, by the way, these guys are back. Just thought you'd want to know. Find us on the We Made This network.
And all good podcast providers.
What about the bad ones?
Yes, them too.
Ah, good.
Because somewhere there's danger.
Somewhere there's injustice.
Somewhere else, the tea's getting cold.
You know, we probably should throw that tea away now. It has been sat there since 1989.